I got the wedding invitation 30 seconds ago. Ren Holloway, the woman I systematically destroyed 6 months back, is marrying someone who isn't me. My hands are shaking. The CEO of a billion-dollar empire, and I can't control my own fingers. Her text just came through, you could have had this. She's right. I could have. But I'm the man they call the glacier for a reason, and glaciers don't just destroy everything they touch, they do it slowly. Deliberately. And I destroyed her on purpose. Before we dive into this emotional journey, if you're enjoying these stories of unexpected love and redemption, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss a story that might just change how you see the world. Now, let's begin. Thaddeus Crane had orchestrated 17 corporate acquisitions, negotiated with Fortune 500 CEOs in 3 languages, and once made a competitor cry during a conference call. He did not do automotive failure. Yet here he was, standing on Route 7 outside Millbrook Falls, Connecticut, watching his Mercedes smoke like a disappointed dragon while his driver apologized for the 4th time. It's the transmission, sir. Could be hours before. Fine. Thaddeus cut him off with the precision of a surgical blade. Find the nearest acceptable establishment. I'll work there. Acceptable turned out to be a generous term for Dolly's Diner, a structure that looked like it had survived several apocalypses through spite alone. The neon sign flickered dole-wise d'heure, and the parking lot was a collection of trucks that had seen better decades. Inside smelled like fryer grease, old coffee, and what Thaddeus could only describe as American defeat. Vinyl booths leaked stuffing. The jukebox in the corner played country music at a volume that suggested hearing loss was optional. And behind the counter, arguing with the cook through a service window, was the loudest woman Thaddeus had ever encountered. Bert, I don't care if it's Tuesday. Mrs. Chun wants her eggs scrambled, not Tuesday style, whatever that means. Tuesday style is scrambled. Then why call it Tuesday style? Just scramble the damn eggs. She turned, saw Thaddeus standing in the doorway in his $3,000 suit, and her entire face lit up with the kind of delight usually reserved for lottery winners or golden retriever puppies. Well, hello there, beautiful stranger. Welcome to Dolly's, where the coffee's hot and the service is also hot. She winked. Actually winked. I'm Ren. I'll be your server, therapist, and occasional comedian today. What can I do you for? Thaddeus blinked. People didn't talk to him like this. People stuttered fond, or if they were competitors, pretended bravery while their eyes betrayed terror. This woman, Ren apparently, was bouncing on her toes like she'd had 17 espressos and mainline sunshine. Coffee. Black. Corner booth. He pointed to the farthest spot from humanity. Ooh, mysterious corner booth guy. Love it. Very brooding vigilante energy. She grabbed a pot of coffee that looked like it had been brewing since the Clinton administration. You want food with that existential dread, or are we keeping it simple? Just coffee. Just coffee. Got it. Living on the edge. She followed him to the booth, somehow talking the entire way. You know, studies show that people who drink black coffee are more likely to be psychopaths. Not judging. Some of my best customers are probably psychopaths. Actually, there's this regular Earl, who definitely has bodies buried somewhere. The coffee. Please. Ren poured, managed to splash some onto the saucer, and didn't seem to notice or care. Right. Coffee. Silence. I can do silence. She paused for exactly 3 seconds. I'm not great at silence. Fair warning. Then she walked away, humming something that sounded like off-brand Disney, and Thaddeus realized he'd just met the most exhausting person on the planet. He pulled out his laptop, determined to salvage his ruined day with productivity. 10 minutes later, she was back. So what brings Mr. Corner Booth to our humble establishment? Car trouble? Witness protection? Running from the law. Car trouble. Ah. See, I would have guessed witness protection. You've got that, I've seen things vibe. Very Jason Bourne meets tax attorney. She tilted her head, studying him with unsettling intensity. Wait. You're not a tax attorney. Too much murder in those eyes. Investment banking? Nope. Too controlled. Oh my god, you're one of those corporate raider guys, aren't you? The kind who buys companies and fires everyone. Thaddeus looked up slowly. Corporate acquisitions specialist. So yes. You're a professional villain. She beamed like she'd solved a puzzle. That's so cool. Do you have an evil laugh? Can I hear it? No. Bummer. I bet it's great. Very mwahaha. She did an impression that made the trucker in the next booth snort into his hash browns. You want pie? I'm bringing you pie. You look like you need pie. I don't. But she was already gone, a whirlwind of ponytail and misplaced confidence. The pie, when it arrived, was actually exceptional. Apple, still warm, with a crust that could make grown men weep. Ren slid into the booth across from him, again, uninvited, and propped her chin on her hands. So, corporate raider. What's the worst thing you've ever done for money? That's an inappropriate question. Which means it's a great question. Come on. Give me something juicy. Did you tank a beloved toy company? Offshore some puppies. Despite himself, despite every instinct telling him to shut this down, Thaddeus felt the corner of his mouth twitch. Offshore puppies. It's a thing. Probably. I don't know how corporate villainy works. She stole a bite of his pie with her finger, shamelessly. I'm studying psychology. Night classes. So I'm professionally curious about what makes people tick. Especially people who look like they've never smiled in their entire lives. I smile. Liar. But she said it warmly, like she was sharing a secret. It's okay. Some people aren't built for smiling. They're built for other things. Like, strategically destroying people's livelihoods or whatever it is you do. You have a very specific idea of my profession. Am I wrong? Thaddeus ate his pie instead of answering. It was easier than admitting she was exactly right. Ren watched him with those unervingly perceptive eyes, brown he noticed, with gold flecks that caught the ugly diner lighting. You know what I think? I think you pretend to be cold because it's easier than letting people see that you're actually just scared. That's amateur psychology. Maybe. But I'm right. She stood, stretching. Enjoy your pie, corner booth. I'll check on you in a bit. Try not to acquire any companies while I'm gone. Thaddeus watched her bounce back to the counter, already laughing at something Bert said through the window. She was chaos in human form. Exhausting. Presumptuous. Utterly unprofessional. And he couldn't remember the last time anyone had spoken to him like he was a person instead of a predator. His car took 4 hours to repair. Thaddeus stayed the entire time, working through acquisitions and quarterly reports while Ren orbited his booth like a cheerful comet. She brought him more coffee without asking, told him about her disaster of a college class. She'd accidentally psychoanalyzed the professor, and somehow got him to admit he'd grown up in Boston, hated his father, and hadn't taken a vacation in 6 years. 6 years? That's not dedication, that's self-harm. She refilled his cup for the 7th time. What do you even do for fun? I work. That's not fun. That's Stockholm Syndrome with capitalism. She leaned against the booth. Come on. What did you like as a kid? Before you became all this. She gestured at his entire existence. Thaddeus considered lying. He considered ending this conversation with the same cold dismissal he used on everyone else. Instead, he heard himself say, piano. Piano. See, there's a human in there. Ren's smile could have powered the eastern seaboard. Do you still play? No. Why not? Because his father had called it frivolous. Because art had no place in the Crane legacy. Because the last time he touched a piano, he'd been 17 and still stupid enough to believe he could be both successful and happy. I got busy. Aha. That's sad. She said it simply, without pity, just observation. You should play again. Life's too short to only do things that make you money. When his driver finally called, Thaddeus felt something uncomfortably close to disappointment. He left a $100 tip for a $15 meal and walked out without looking back. But he thought about her the entire drive to Manhattan. About her smile. About the way she'd looked at him like she could see past the armor. About how she'd stolen his pie and called him a villain and somehow made him feel more alive in 4 hours than he'd felt in years. Ridiculous. She was a waitress in a nowhere town. He was the CEO of a global empire. Their worlds didn't intersect. Couldn't intersect. He'd never see her again. That conviction lasted exactly 1 week. The following Tuesday, Thaddeus found himself taking the same route back to Manhattan from a meeting in Hartford. When his driver asked if he wanted the highway, Thaddeus heard himself say, "Take Route 7. Dolly's Diner appeared like a beacon of questionable decisions. Ren looked up from wiping down the counter, saw him walking through the door, and her entire face transformed into a grin that could melt ice caps. Corner booth. You came back. Did you miss me, or did you miss Bert's questionable cooking? The pie, Thaddeus said, heading to his booth. I came back for the pie. Sure you did. She followed him, coffee pot already in hand. It's definitely the pie and not my sparkling personality. And despite himself, despite every carefully constructed wall he'd built over 33 years, Thaddeus Crane smiled. Definitely the pie. Ren laughed, and Thaddeus realized he was in very serious trouble. Have you ever met someone annoying who slowly grew on you? Tell us your story in the comment. Tuesday became Thaddeus's favorite day of the week, which was insane. He'd spent years optimizing his schedule for maximum efficiency. Tuesdays had been acquisition reviews, portfolio assessments, strategic planning sessions. Now they were 4-hour detours through Connecticut to a diner that health inspectors probably visited with hazmat suits. His assistant, Patricia, noticed first. Mr. Crane, you have the Whitmore merger scheduled for next Tuesday at 2. Move it. Sir. Move it to Thursday. Tuesday afternoons are blocked. For what? Thaddeus had looked at her over his glasses with the expression that usually made people reconsider their careers. Is that your concern? Patricia had worked for him for 8 years. She knew when to retreat. No, sir. But she'd smiled on her way out, and Thaddeus suspected she knew exactly what he was doing. The thing about patterns was that they became predictable. And the thing about Ren Holloway was that she thrived on unpredictability. Second Tuesday, she placed a plastic crown on his head the moment he sat down. Today you're the Burger King. Congrats. Your kingdom is this booth. I don't eat burgers. Today you do. Trust me. The burger had been exceptional, and he'd worn the crown for the entire meal while she'd taken photos for the Employee Board of Fame. Third Tuesday, she brought her psychology textbook and made him take a personality test. Okay, so you're definitely INTJ. Which tracks? That's the architect personality. Very strategic, very emotionally unavailable. This is a pseudoscience. Says the man who just scored 98% on difficulty expressing feelings. That's almost impressive. She tapped the book thoughtfully. What happened to you, corner booth? Who hurt you so bad that you turned into a human ice sculpture? Thaddeus had almost told her. About his father, Richard Crane, the original glacier, who'd built Crane Industries on ruthlessness and raised his son like a weapon. About his mother, who'd left when he was 8 because loving a crane was like loving a monument. About learning that emotions were weaknesses to exploit in others and excise from yourself. Instead he'd said, people don't hurt me. I'm very good at not letting them close enough. Until now, Ren had said softly, and something in her eyes had made his chest feel uncomfortably tight. Fourth Tuesday, she'd asked about his work. Really asked, not the way people usually did, with greed or jealousy or calculation. She'd wanted to know what he actually did all day. Identify failing companies, acquire them, restructure them for profitability or asset sale. So you buy broken things and either fix them or sell them for parts. Essentially. That sounds exhausting. Do you ever buy something just because you like it? Not because it makes financial sense. No one had ever asked him that. No. That's sad. Everything in your life is a transaction. She'd refilled his coffee, thoughtful. What about relationships? Are those transactions too? Relationships are investments. They require resources, time, emotional energy, and yield returns. Or they don't, and you divest. Wow. You're actually serious. Ren had studied him like he was a particularly interesting lab specimen. Have you ever been in love? No. Ever wanted to be? Thaddeus had considered the question honestly. I don't think I'm built for it. Everyone's built for it. Some people just haven't found the right contractor to do the renovation. She'd grinned at her own metaphor. See what I did there? Construction humor. Because you're an architect personality. I'm hilarious. She was, actually. Hilarious and insightful and completely unimpressed by everything that usually intimidated people about him. She treated him like a friend, not a conquest or a threat. Like he was Thaddeus, not the Glacier or Crane Industries, or any other reputation that preceded him. It was intoxicating. Fifth Tuesday, Ren had seemed distracted. Quieter than usual. She brought his coffee and pie without the usual performance, and when she'd sat down across from him, her smile hadn't quite reached her eyes. What's wrong? The question had escaped before Thaddeus could stop it. Nothing. Bad day. Lady at table 6 told me I was wasting my life working here when I should be finding a husband. She'd laughed, but it had sounded hollow. The patriarchy is exhausting. You're in school. You're working toward a career. That's not wasting your life. Try telling that to small-town Connecticut. Around here, if you're not married by 25, you're basically a spinster. She played with her ponytail, something Thaddeus had learned meant she was anxious. I'm 26. I've got 3 years of undergrad left, then grad school for my license. I'll be 31 before I can even start my actual career. Sometimes I wonder if I'm chasing something impossible. Thaddeus had leaned forward. Do you want to be a therapist? More than anything. Then it's not impossible. It's just difficult. There's a difference. Says the man who probably never failed at anything in his life. I fail constantly. I just don't let it stop me. He'd held her gaze. You're 26. I'm 33. I didn't fully establish Crane Industries until I was 29. Success isn't a race. Easy for you to say. You're already successful. Because I didn't let other people's timelines dictate my actions. He'd surprised himself by reaching across the table, stopping just short of her hand. You're brilliant, Ren. You see things in people they don't see in themselves. That's not wasting a life. That's building one. She'd stared at him, something shifting in her expression. Did you just compliment me? Like a real compliment, not wrapped in sarcasm. Don't let it go to your head. Too late. My head is huge now. Massive. I'll need a bigger crown. But she'd been smiling, genuine this time, and Thaddeus had felt like he'd won something more valuable than any acquisition. Sixth Tuesday, she'd ambushed him. Okay, Corner booth. Real talk time. Ren had slid into the booth before he'd even ordered. Why do you keep coming back here? The pie is not that good. It's fine pie. Solid B+ pie. You're a billionaire. You could have Michelin-starred pie delivered to your office by a private jet. So why are you here every Tuesday, sitting in a booth that's held together by duct tape and prayers? Thaddeus had stared at his hands. He'd negotiated billion-dollar deals. He'd faced down hostile boards and SEC investigations. But this question from this woman felt more dangerous than anything in his professional life. I don't know, he'd lied. Yes, you do. She'd leaned back, studying him. I think you come here because nobody in this diner cares that you're rich or successful or scary. I think you come here because you can be a person instead of a reputation. I think. She'd paused, something uncertain crossing her face. I think maybe you come here for the same reason I look forward to Tuesdays now. His heart had done something arrhythmic and alarming. Which is? Because I like talking to you. Because you're interesting and smart and you pretend to be cold but you're actually just really, really bad at feelings. Because every Tuesday I get to see you almost smile, and it's becoming my favorite thing. The diner had fallen away. The terrible music, the smell of burnt coffee, the clatter of dishes, all of it had become background noise. There was only Ren, looking at him like she could see every wall he'd built and wasn't impressed by any of them. Ren. You don't have to say anything. I just wanted you to know. In case you thought you were hiding it. She'd stood up, that brightness back in her eyes. Same time next week, corner booth? Yes. Good. Because I'm getting used to you. She'd walked away, and Thaddeus had sat there, experiencing what he could only classify as complete emotional system failure. He was falling for her. Falling hard and fast, and with none of the control he usually maintained over every aspect of his existence. Ren Holloway, with her chaotic ponytail and her discount psychology degree and her complete immunity to his intimidation tactics, was dismantling 33 years of careful emotional architecture. The smart thing would be to stop coming. To end this before it became something he couldn't control. But Thaddeus Crane had built an empire on calculated risks. And Ren Holloway felt like the biggest, most terrifying risk he'd ever considered taking. 7th Tuesday, he'd made a decision. I want to help you, he'd said, no preamble, the moment she'd brought his coffee. Help me what? Clean tables? Because Bert would love that. Your education. Your career. I want to fund it. Ren had frozen. What? You shouldn't have to work nights and study days and worry about loans. Let me remove those obstacles. I can set up a fund. No. It's not charity. It's an investment. In what, exactly? What's your return here, Thaddeus? She'd used his name for the first time, and it had sounded like an accusation. I'm not one of your failing companies. You can't acquire me and restructure me for profitability. That's not what this is. Then what is it? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like a rich guy who's decided I'm his new project. Like I'm some broken thing you need to fix so you can feel good about yourself. I care about you, he'd said, and the words had felt like jumping off a cliff. Ren had stared at him for a long moment. Do you? Or do you care about the idea of me? The poor waitress you can save? Because I don't need saving, Thaddeus. I need people who see me as an equal, not a charity case. She'd walked away, and Thaddeus had sat there, realizing he'd just made the biggest miscalculation of his career. He'd come back to save it. To fix it. To do whatever it took. But he hadn't known that it was already too late, that in trying to help, he'd revealed exactly what Ren feared most, that he saw her as something to be fixed, not someone to be loved. It's all going too perfect. You know something's about to go wrong. What do you think will ruin this? Comment your predictions. Thaddeus didn't sleep that night. Or the night after. He sat in his penthouse, looking out at Manhattan's glittering grid, trying to understand where he'd gone wrong. He'd run the scenario like a business problem, identify issue, Ren's financial stress, propose solution, funding, execute plan, offer support. Clean. Logical. Efficient. Except Ren wasn't a business problem. She was a person. A person he'd somehow managed to insult by offering exactly what he thought she needed. You're an idiot, he told his reflection at 3 a.m. His reflection had agreed. By Tuesday morning, Thaddeus had a plan. He'd apologize. He'd explain himself better. He'd make her understand that this wasn't about fixing her, it was about wanting to see her succeed without the weight of financial anxiety crushing her dreams. He'd arrived at Dolly's at his usual time. Ren had been at the counter, laughing with a trucker about something. When she'd seen Thaddeus, her smile had dimmed. Coffee's on the counter. Help yourself. Ren, I need to. Busy right now. She'd grabbed 2 plates and headed to a booth across the diner. He'd waited. When she'd finally approached his booth, it had been with professional courtesy and nothing else. What can I get you? Can we talk? I'm working. Ren. Look, corner booth. She'd pulled out her order pad like a shield. I get that you were trying to be nice. I do. But I've spent my whole life having people tell me what I can't do, what I need, how I should live. I don't need that from you too. That's not what I was doing. Wasn't it? She'd met his eyes, and the hurt there had been like a physical blow. You saw me struggling and decided to swoop in with your money and fix things. Like I'm some problem to solve instead of a person who's chosen this path, who's working for it, who wants to earn it herself. I was trying to help. I know. But sometimes help looks a lot like control. She'd closed her pad. I need to know something. Do you like me, or do you like the idea of helping me? The question had landed like a grenade. Because Thaddeus had spent 8 weeks coming to this diner, and he told himself it was about the pie, the quiet, the break from his life. But it wasn't. It had never been. It was about her, about how she made him laugh, how she challenged him, how she treated him like a person instead of a portfolio. I like you, he'd said quietly. I like how you see the best in people even when they show you their worst. I like how you talk to yourself when you're counting change. I like that you stole my pie that first day and didn't apologize. I like that you're fearless and kind and you call me on my bullshit. I like you, Ren. Not some project. You. She'd been quiet for a long moment. Then why couldn't you just say that? Why did it have to be about money? Because money is what I know. It's how I solve problems. It's the only language I'm fluent in. He'd leaned forward. But I'm learning. I'm learning that caring about someone means respecting their choices, even when you disagree. I'm learning that not everything needs to be fixed. I'm learning from you. Ren had sat down slowly. You mean that? Yes. You're actually trying. Yes. You're still emotionally constipated. Undoubtedly. She'd laughed finally, and it had sounded like forgiveness. Okay. Here's the deal. You can keep coming here on Tuesdays. We can keep talking. But you have to promise me something. Anything. See me. Not my problems. Not my potential. Me. Just me. Can you do that? Thaddeus had reached across the table and taken her hand, the first time he'd actually touched her. Her palm was warm, slightly calloused from work. Human. Real. I can do that. But he'd already made a terrible mistake. 2 weeks earlier, Thaddeus had done exactly what Ren had accused him of. He'd identified the problem, her financial stress, and implemented a solution. He'd created the Millbrook Falls Education Initiative, a legitimate scholarship fund, fully funded by an anonymous donor, him, administered through a third party, designed to support local students pursuing healthcare and social service careers. Ren's name had been at the top of the recipient list. He'd thought he was being clever, helping her without making it obvious, giving her the support she needed while respecting her independence. He'd been wrong. The scholarship notification had arrived on a Thursday. Ren had called him immediately, and the fury in her voice had been like touching a live wire. The Millbrook Falls Education Initiative. Established 2 weeks ago. Anonymous donor. Funding specifically for psychology students at community colleges within 50 miles of this diner. Her laugh had been sharp enough to cut glass. Want to take a guess who got the first scholarship, Thaddeus? Ren. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I was too stupid to connect the dots? No. I thought. You thought you could control this. Control me. Like I'm another acquisition for your portfolio. Her voice had cracked. I trusted you. I told you what I needed, and you immediately went behind my back and did exactly what I asked you not to do. I set this up before our conversation. Before I understood. Before you understood that I'm a human being with agency? How big of you? Let me fix this. There it is again. Fix. I don't need fixing, Thaddeus. I need someone who respects me enough to listen when I say no. She'd taken a shaky breath. Don't come back to Dolly's. I can't. I can't do this. She'd hung up. Thaddeus had called back 17 times. She'd blocked his number. He'd driven to Millbrook Falls the next day. Bert had met him at the door with crossed arms and a spatula that looked like it could do damage. She doesn't want to see you. I need to explain. You need to respect what she said. Which is stay away. Bert had pointed the spatula at Thaddeus's chest. Look, I've watched you two every Tuesday for months. I thought maybe you were good for her. Turns out you're just another rich guy who thinks money solves everything. I don't think that. Then prove it. Give her space. Let her come to you if she wants. Stop trying to orchestrate everything. Thaddeus had stood in that parking lot for 20 minutes, staring at the diner where he'd been happiest. Then he'd driven back to Manhattan and done something he'd never done in his professional life. He'd admitted defeat. But defeat, it turned out, was just the beginning. Because the thing about Ren Holloway was that she wasn't done teaching him. The lesson just had to get worse before it got better. 3 weeks of silence. 3 weeks of Thaddeus throwing himself into work, trying to forget how she'd looked when she smiled, how she'd called him corner booth, like it was a term of endearment, how she'd made him want to be better than he'd ever thought possible. Then Patricia had knocked on his door with an expression he'd never seen before, pity. "Sir, there's someone here to see you. She says it's personal." Ren had stood in his office doorway, looking smaller than he remembered. She'd been wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that said "Talk Nerdy to Me," and her eyes had been red. "Hi, Ren." His heart had done something Olympic level in his chest. "I didn't think. I already had a scholarship." The words had come out flat. "Full ride. Merit-based. Academic Achievement Award from my community college. I got the notification the same day I got yours. I was going to tell you that Tuesday over pie, so you'd stop worrying about me." Thaddeus had felt the floor drop away. "But then I saw your scholarship fund and I thought." She'd laughed bitterly. "I thought you didn't see me. You just saw someone to save. So I pushed you away before you could confirm it." "Ren. Let me finish." She'd stepped into his office, and he'd realized she'd been shaking. "I've spent 3 weeks being angry at you. And I was right to be angry. You did overstep. You did try to control things. But I also realized something. You tried to help because you cared. Maybe you did it wrong, but you tried. And I've never." Her voice had broken. "I've never had someone try. Everyone in my life has told me my dreams are too big, too expensive, too impractical. You're the first person who thought they were worth investing in. Your dreams are worth everything. I know that now. But here's the thing, Thaddeus. I've been thinking about what you said. About how you only know how to show care through money. And I realized I only know how to accept care through words. We're both fluent in the wrong languages." She'd walked to his desk, close enough that he could smell her shampoo, something citrus and bright, so perfectly her. "So here's what I'm proposing. We learn each other's languages. You learn that I need words and respect and trust. I learn that sometimes accepting help isn't weakness. We both learn how to do this." She gestured between them. "Whatever this is." "This is me being catastrophically in love with you," Thaddeus had heard himself say. Ren had frozen. "What?" "I'm in love with you. I have been since you stole my pie that first Tuesday. I'm in love with your optimism and your terrible jokes and how you see people, really see them. I'm in love with how you made me remember I'm human and not just a sum of acquisitions." He'd stood up, moving around the desk. "I messed this up because I'm terrible at feelings and worse at showing them. But I promise you, I see you, Ren. Not your problems or your potential. Just you. And you're extraordinary. I'm wearing a sweatshirt with a typo." She'd pointed to where nerdy was spelled nerdy. "It's perfect. I probably have coffee stains somewhere. Perfect. I'm still mad at you. You should be. I might stay mad for a while. I'll wait." Ren had looked at him, really looked, and he'd seen the moment she decided. The moment fear gave way to something braver. "I love you too. Even though you're controlling and emotionally stunted and you think money solves everything. That's a terrible endorsement. It's honest." She'd smiled, and it had been like sunrise. "That's what you're getting with me. Honesty. Even when it's ugly. Especially when it's ugly. Think you can handle that?" Thaddeus had pulled her into his arms, careful, like she was something precious. "I'll do my best." "Your best is pretty good. When you're not sabotaging yourself." "I'll try to minimize the sabotage. That's all I ask." She'd looked up at him. "Also, I'm keeping the scholarship money." "What?" "Your scholarship. I'm keeping it. Because here's the thing, you created something good. Something that will help people. So I'm taking it, and I'm going to use it to help other people once I'm a therapist. I'm turning your control issues into something positive. You're welcome." Thaddeus had laughed, actually laughed, something he'd forgotten he knew how to do. "You're impossible. And you're possible. We balance out." She'd kissed him then, soft and sweet and tasting like forgiveness. It should have been the happy ending. But Thaddeus Crane had spent 33 years building walls for a reason. And those walls didn't come down just because someone loved you. They came down when you finally let yourself be vulnerable enough to deserve that love. That lesson was still coming. He meant well but did it all wrong. If you were Ren's best friend, what would you tell her to do? Comment your advice. 3 months. That's how long happiness lasted. 93 days of Ren spending weekends in Manhattan, curled up in Thaddeus's apartment while he worked and she studied. 93 days of him driving to Millbrook Falls to watch her work at Dolly's, stealing moments between her tables. 93 days of learning each other's languages, her teaching him about emotional vulnerability, him teaching her that accepting help wasn't surrender. It was the best 3 months of Thaddeus's life. Which is probably why he destroyed them. It started with a phone call. His lawyer, Marcus Wendell, with news about the Hartwell acquisition, a pharmaceutical company Thaddeus had been circling for months. "We've got them. They're desperate. We can get it for 40% under market value if we move fast." "What's the catch?" "Factory closure. The Millbrook Falls plant. It's hemorrhaging money, outdated equipment, inefficient workforce. We shut it down, consolidate operations in Jersey, save $17 million annually. Thaddeus had looked at the report. The numbers were clear. The decision was obvious. Do it. He'd forgotten one crucial detail. Millbrook Falls only had 3 major employers. Dolly's Diner, a grocery chain, and the Hartwell Pharmaceuticals plant that employed 200 people. He'd forgotten because he'd spent 3 months thinking about Wren instead of spreadsheets. He'd forgotten because love had made him sloppy. He'd remembered when Wren had called, her voice small and broken. Tell me you didn't know. Didn't know what? The factory. Hartwell. 200 people getting laid off. Half this town depends on that income. She'd been crying. Tell me you didn't know this would happen. And Thaddeus had felt ice flood his veins. The Hartwell acquisition. Your company. Your decision. Did you know? He could have lied. Should have lied. But he'd promised her honesty. Yes. The silence had been devastating. People I know work there, Thaddeus. Bert's brother. Mrs. Chen's daughter. The truck driver who tells terrible jokes. You're destroying their lives. It's business, Wren. The plant was failing. It's people. Real people with families and mortgages and kids. Her voice had cracked. How can you be so cold? Because cold is what works. Cold is what keeps companies profitable and investors happy. Cold is what I do. The words had come out automatically, defensive. You knew what I did. I never pretended to be something I'm not. I thought you were better than this. Better? I'm exactly what I've always been. You just chose to see something else. No. You chose to show me something else. Those Tuesdays, those nights in your apartment, you weren't the glacier then. You were Thaddeus. You were human. I'm always human, Wren. Humans make hard choices. We don't all get to be idealistic waitresses who think good intentions solve everything. The moment the words left his mouth, Thaddeus had wanted them back. But words were like acquisitions. Once executed, rarely reversible. Is that what you think of me? An idealistic waitress? That's not what I meant. Yes, it is. It's exactly what you meant. I'm the naive girl who believes in good and kindness, and you're the realist who understands how the world really works. She'd laughed, and it had sounded like something breaking. You know what? You're right. I am idealistic. I believe people matter more than profit margins. I believe there's always a better way than destroying lives for shareholder value. And if that makes me naive, then fine. I'm naive. Wren. But you know what you are? You're a coward. You hide behind business and hard choices because it's easier than admitting you're scared. Scared of being soft. Scared of caring too much. Scared of being your father. That had landed like a blade between his ribs. Don't. Why not? You brought him up. That first month, remember? You told me about him. About how he built an empire and destroyed everyone around him. About how you swore you'd be different. Her voice had gone quiet, lethal. Congratulations, Thaddeus. You're exactly like him. I'm nothing like him. Keep telling yourself that. Maybe you'll believe it eventually. She'd taken a breath. Don't call me. Don't come to Dolly's. Don't try to fix this with money or explanations. Just don't. She'd hung up. Thaddeus had sat in his office, his throne room, his glass castle, and felt something crack in his chest. Something that might have been his heart, if he still had one. He'd done exactly what she'd accused him of. He'd hidden behind business. He'd made the cold, calculated choice. He'd been the glacier instead of the man who'd learned to smile over pie in a terrible diner. He'd been his father. The acquisition had gone through. The Hartwell plant had closed. 200 people had lost their jobs in a town that couldn't absorb that loss. The quarterly reports had been excellent. Thaddeus had been miserable. He'd tried calling. Blocked. He'd tried showing up at Dolly's. Bert had physically barred the door. He'd tried flowers, letters, even a donation to Millbrook Falls Economic Recovery Fund, all returned. 6 weeks of silence. 6 weeks of Thaddeus Crane learning what it meant to lose something irreplaceable. And then on a Wednesday, not even a Tuesday, which felt like additional punishment, Patricia had buzzed his office. Sir, there's a Mr. Bert Johnson here to see you. He says it's about Ms. Holloway. Thaddeus's heart had stopped. Send him in. Bert had walked into his office like he owned it, looked around at the leather and mahogany and floor-to-ceiling views, and snorted. This is what 200 jobs bought. Nice. Bert. Shut up. I'm not here for you. Bert had tossed a photo onto the desk. Wren, smiling in a graduation cap and gown. She finished her undergrad. 3 years, straight A's, full honors. Starts grad school in the fall. Thaddeus had picked up the photo with shaking hands. That's incredible. It is. Want to know the only thing wrong with that day? You weren't there. Because she asked me not to tell you. Because she's convinced you don't actually care about her, you just like the idea of saving her. That's not true. Isn't it? Because from where I'm standing, the moment things got hard, the moment she challenged you, you fell right back into being the corporate asshole. You chose your empire over her. I chose what I always choose. Security. Control. Profit. You chose fear. Bert had leaned on the desk. Look, I don't know you. Don't particularly like you. But I've watched Ren for 6 weeks, and I've seen what losing you did to her. She cries when she thinks no one's watching. She checks her phone like maybe you'll call, even though she blocked your number. She's broken, and it's your fault. I know. Good. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to figure out if you actually love her or if you just loved how she made you feel. Because if it's the latter, you stay away. She deserves better than being someone's emotional experiment. I love her. The words had come easily, finally. I love her enough that I'd rather she be happy without me than miserable with me. That's growth. But it's also bullshit. Bert had straightened. You want to actually love her? Love her enough to change. Love her enough to admit you were wrong. Love her enough to be uncomfortable and scared and vulnerable. Think you can handle that? I don't know. At least that's honest. Bert had headed for the door, then paused. She's having a graduation party at Dolly's. Saturday night. 7 p.m. Show up or don't. But if you show up, you better be ready to be the man she fell for, not the glacier she left. He'd walked out, leaving Thaddeus with a photo and a choice. Saturday night, Thaddeus stood outside Dolly's diner with a knot in his stomach that no amount of billion-dollar deals had prepared him for. Through the windows, he could see Ren, cap and gown replaced with a dress, smile genuine as she laughed with friends. She looked happy. Happy without him. He should leave. Should let her have this moment. Should accept that he destroyed something precious because he was exactly what she'd called him, a coward. But then she'd turned. Looked through the window. Seen him standing there. And her expression had shattered every excuse he'd built. Thaddeus had walked into Dolly's for the last time. Or, as it turned out, the first time of something new. The party hadn't stopped when Thaddeus walked in. The music had kept playing, some upbeat pop song that felt entirely wrong for the moment. People had kept talking, laughing, celebrating Ren's achievement. The world had continued exactly as it always did. Except for Ren. She'd frozen, cupcake halfway to her mouth, staring at him like he was a ghost that had wandered into the wrong timeline. Bert had appeared at Thaddeus's elbow. You show up, you talk to her. Properly. No boardroom speeches. I don't know how to do this. Good. Means you're doing it right. Bert had given him a small push toward Ren's table. Thaddeus had crossed the diner, maybe 15 feet, maybe a mile, and stopped at her table. Up close, he'd seen the dark circles under her eyes, the careful way she'd applied makeup to look okay. She looked exhausted. She looked like him. Hi. Hi. Ren had set down her cupcake with surgical precision. You're here. Bert invited me. If you want me to leave. I want you to tell me why you came. Not a request. A challenge. The Ren he knew, the one who'd never let him hide behind careful words. Thaddeus had looked around at the full diner, friends, family, people who'd watched him break her. Can we talk? Somewhere private. No. You want to say something, say it here. To all of us. She gestured to the room. Half these people lost their jobs because of you. They deserve to hear whatever you have to say. It was cruel. It was fair. It was exactly what he deserved. Okay. Thaddeus had taken a breath. You were right. About all of it. About me being a coward. About me hiding behind business decisions. About me being exactly like my father. Ren's expression hadn't changed. The Hartwell acquisition, I knew it would close the factory. I saw the projections. 200 jobs, 17 million in savings. And I made the call in about 30 seconds because that's what I do. I optimize. I find inefficiency and eliminate it. Is this supposed to be an apology? Ren had asked quietly. No. It's supposed to be the truth. Thaddeus had forced himself to look at the people around the diner, people whose lives he disrupted with a signature. I didn't think about you. Any of you. I thought about spreadsheets and shareholder value and quarterly reports. I thought about everything except the actual human cost. Bert's brother, Tom, Thaddeus remembered from Ren's stories, had stood up. So what, you're here to say sorry? That's supposed to get us our jobs back. No. Sorry doesn't fix this. But I need you to know I understand what I did. Thaddeus had met his gaze. I treated people like numbers. Like assets to be liquidated. And I was wrong. Were you though? This from Mrs. Chun, her voice sharp. Because you're still rich. Your company still profited. You lost nothing. I lost her. Thaddeus had looked at Ren. I lost the only person who ever made me want to be better than my balance sheet. And that's not your problem. None of you owe me forgiveness. But I need Ren to know, she was right. About everything. And I'm sorry it took destroying what we had for me to understand that. Ren had been staring at her hands. What do you want from me, Thaddeus? Nothing. You don't owe me anything. He'd pulled an envelope from his jacket. This is my resignation as CEO of Crane Industries, effective next month. I'm liquidating my majority share and distributing the proceeds to 3 causes: economic revitalization for Millbrook Falls, job training and placement for displaced workers, and a genuine education fund, administered by an independent board, no strings attached. The diner had gone silent. I'm keeping enough to live on. Modestly. Comfortably. But I'm done being an empire. He'd placed the envelope on the table. I don't know what I'll do instead. Maybe nothing for a while. Maybe I'll figure out who Thaddeus Crane is when he's not the glacier. This is a grand gesture, Ren had said softly. Grand gestures aren't change. I know. Which is why I'm not asking you to take me back. I'm asking if you'll let me prove I can change. Not for you, for me. Because you were right. I've spent 33 years being afraid of being soft, being vulnerable, being anything except in control. And I'm tired, Ren. I'm so tired of being cold. Ren had looked up finally, and her eyes had been bright with tears. You broke my heart. I know. You made me feel naive and stupid for believing in good. I know. You became exactly what you said you'd never be. I know. Thaddeus had felt his own eyes burn. And I can't undo that. I can't give back the jobs or erase what I said or fix what I broke. All I can do is be honest. I love you. I love you enough that I'm walking away from everything I built because it means nothing if I'm still the person who hurt you. I love you enough to be terrified right now, in front of all these people, admitting I don't know what I'm doing. You're doing vulnerability. Ren had wiped her eyes. It's new on you. Does it suit me? I don't know yet. She'd stood up, walked over to him. Up close, Thaddeus had seen the fracture lines around her eyes, the evidence of her pain. You really resigned? Not yet. But I will. Show me. Thaddeus had pulled out his phone, opened his email to the draft he'd written 17 times, and handed it to her. Ren had read it, a formal resignation, distribution of assets, timeline for transition, and her hands had shaken. This is real. Yes. You're giving up everything. I'm giving up things. I'm hoping to get back something more important. He'd met her gaze. But even if I don't, even if you tell me to leave and never come back, I'm still doing this. Because you taught me that who I am matters more than what I have. And who I am needs to change. Ren had handed back his phone. Send it. What? Send it. Right now. Because if you mean this, prove it. Thaddeus had looked at the draft, the email that would end his empire, his identity, everything he'd spent 15 years building. His finger had hovered over send. He'd thought about his father. About Richard Crane's final words before the heart attack, legacy is all that matters. He'd thought about Ren. About how she'd looked at him that first Tuesday like he was someone worth knowing. About how she'd stolen his pie and called him out and made him remember he was human. He'd pressed send. The diner had erupted. Some people had applauded. Others had looked skeptical. Tom had muttered we'll see into his beer. But Ren had been staring at him like she'd never seen him before. You actually did it. I said I would. People say a lot of things. I'm trying to be someone who means them. Thaddeus had wanted to touch her, to pull her close, but he'd kept his hands at his sides. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't expect another chance. I just needed you to know, you were right. About me, about us, about everything. And I'm going to spend however long it takes becoming the person who deserves you. Ren had laughed, shaky and wet. That's very dramatic. I learned from the best. I hate that you're charming right now. I hate that I hurt you. I know. She'd reached up, touching his face. First time in 6 weeks. I know you do. And I believe you want to change. But Thaddeus, wanting isn't the same as doing. Then let me prove it. Give me time. How much time? However long it takes. Ren had studied him, really studied him, the way she did when she was psychoanalyzing someone. What if it takes years? What if you do all this work and I still can't trust you? Then I'll have become a better person anyway. And that's not nothing. What if I meet someone else? That one had hurt. Then you'll be happy. And I'll be grateful I knew you at all. You're serious. Completely. Ren had pulled her hand back, wrapping her arms around herself. I loved you. Present tense. I still love you. And that makes this harder, not easier, because I know what we could be. But I also know what you did. What you're capable of when you're scared. I know. So here's what's going to happen. She'd taken a breath. You're going to do whatever it is you're doing, therapy, self-discovery, becoming less of an emotional disaster. I'm going to grad school. We're not together. We're not dating. We're not anything. Thaddeus had felt his heart crack. Okay. But she'd held up a finger. If, and this is a huge if you actually change, if you do the work, if you become someone who can handle love without destroying it, then maybe possibly we can revisit this. That's the smallest maybe I've ever heard. It's the only one I've got right now. Ren had smiled sadly. You broke my heart, Thaddeus. You don't get to fix it by grand gestures. You fix it by proving day after day that you're not that person anymore. How do I do that? I don't know. That's your journey, not mine. She'd stepped back. But for what it's worth, I hope you figure it out. Because the Thaddeus I fell for, the one who wore a plastic crown and talked about piano and made me laugh, he was worth loving. I'd like to meet him again someday. She'd walked away then, back to her party, leaving Thaddeus standing in the middle of Dolly's diner with an uncertain future and a small fragile hope. Bert had appeared again. That went better than expected. She hates me. She loves you. That's why it hurts. Bert had clapped him on the shoulder. You've got work to do, son. Better get started. Thaddeus had left then, driving back to Manhattan in a Bentley he'd probably have to sell, heading to a penthouse he'd probably have to leave, feeling more uncertain than he'd felt in his entire adult life. And for the first time in 33 years, uncertain felt like progress. The wedding invitation sat on Thaddeus's desk, a small piece of cardstock that represented everything he'd lost and everything he'd learned. Ms. Wren Holloway and Mr. Thaddeus Crane request the honor of your presence. He picked up his phone. Pressed call. She answered on the third ring. Hi. Hi. Thaddeus looked at the invitation. This is presumptuous. Is it? He could hear her smile. You've been in therapy for 6 months. You've sold your company. You've been volunteering at the community center. You've sent me flowers every Tuesday with no expectation of response. You've done the work, Thaddeus. I've started the work. It's nowhere near done. Good thing I like projects that take time. Ren paused. I'm not asking you to be perfect. I'm asking if you want to keep trying. Together. Thaddeus looked out his window, not at Manhattan's glittering grid, but at the street below where actual people lived actual lives. He'd moved to a smaller apartment. Started teaching business ethics at a community college. Learned to play piano again. Became someone his younger self might have recognized. I do. Want to keep trying. Then say yes. To what? The invitation, dummy. Will you marry me? Eventually? After appropriate dating and counseling, and probably several more fights where I call you emotionally constipated. Thaddeus laughed, genuine, full, the laugh of someone who'd learned that control was an illusion and vulnerability was the only real strength. Yes. To all of it. The marriage, the fighting, the journey. Yes. Good. Because I already ordered the save the dates. She paused. I love you. The new you. But also the old you. All the versions of you that got us here. I love you too. Even though you're presumptuous and you steal pie and you're making me have feelings in the middle of the day. Feelings during business hours. How scandalous. He heard rustling. Come to Dolly's. Tuesday. Our booth. We have a wedding to plan. I'll be there. I know you will. That's why I'm marrying you. She hung up, and Thaddeus sat with the invitation, proof that sometimes the best acquisitions weren't companies or assets or empires. Sometimes the best acquisitions were learning how to be human again. Sometimes they were finding someone patient enough to teach you. And sometimes, if you were very lucky, they were second chances with waitresses who wore plastic crowns and believed in redemption. Thaddeus Crane had built an empire and lost it. But he'd found something better, a future with someone who loved him not despite his brokenness, but because he'd been brave enough to admit it. That felt like the best return on investment he'd ever made. What was your favorite moment in this entire story? The first meeting? The Tuesdays? The redemption? Tell us below.
Thank you for watching this story to the end. If you enjoyed this story, you will surely love the next one. It's as interesting and even more intriguing as can ever imagine. So do check it out. Click on the image showing on your screen right now to watch the next one.